I just want to say that William C. Taylor High School was the best time in my life. When you're young, you don't realize how much education means. But as you get older, you'll find out that that was your best years, was when you were in high school. And I'll always remember William C. Taylor High School.
In the Warrenton or the Fauquier County area, they had small community schools, which was like two-room schools, which had 4 or 5 classes in one room.
Hume, as you may or may not know, was basically just a little clapboard buildings where we received our elementary education.
And it was predominantly for African-American children because they knew that they didn't have quality education anyplace else. They made sure that they all had a school.
Back in the 50s and early 60s, the schools were set up on outdoor facilities. You had to go outside to go to the bathroom.
I don't feel that we were equal as far as the accommodations. Number one was school books, that we more or less had used school books. Everything was handed down.
In terms of a two-room school, the teacher was responsible for 1st through the 4th. And she would have an hour for the 1st grade, hour for the 2nd, hour for the 3rd, 4th. So Rosenwald's, which was the elementary school in the Warrenton area, theirs went from the 1st through the 6th. And then when Taylor was built, they moved the 7th grade into the high school, or the high school building. So when I started Taylor, I was in the 7th grade.
Well, first I was looking forward to it. It was exciting to go to a brand new building with real floors and various classrooms, a larger population, an opportunity for more interaction with students.
8th grade was considered high school back then, so it was really something you were kind of looking forward to, coming from the one class system to crossing the highway and being considered high school.
Taylor was the only high school that we could come to. There was no other school. And if you wanted to further your education, then you had to come to William C. Taylor because there was no other options. The education system was very oppressive for us as people of color. It was our principal, vice principal, teachers, administrators, community persons that came in to help us to develop those life skills that we would need as we grew.
It was just family. We knew everybody. Our family was good about teaching us about our kinfolk, and then it carried over into the schools and stuff. Even some of our teachers would come to our houses. My mom was a great cooker, and when you feed somebody some fried chicken and all of that, they're gonna fall in love with you. So that's the way it was back then.
Our principal and assistant principal, they were amazing. Mr. Hazzard and Mr. Johnson, and they were on hands. A lot of administrators aren't on hands.
Mr. Hazzard, he was a no-nonsense person. He was friendly. He could be your friend, be your buddy. But when you were out in that hallway and you shouldn't have been, you came to him and he ministered on-the-spot correction.
I would see him in the hallway. He would always ask how we were doing, if there was anything that we had to come to him for, that he would take care of it. He always seemed to be there for the students.
They were role models. And when you see a role model that has experienced things that you haven't experienced, but they've gone through, they've overcome certain adversities, things that happen in life, but they continue to go forth, then that helps us.
We had good teachers during that time period, who concentrated in helping us grow as individuals and as a group.
We were taught by about 25 or 30 teachers who not only gave us a strong educational foundation, but they also nurtured us.
Ruth Roan Rowe was my English teacher. And what I liked about her was the fact that she could go off into off track at times. She wanted to tell you about where she grew up, Montrose, Virginia, and tell about her time working in the garden and what have you. So to me, I figure, oh, that means less time for class.
My business teacher, she was named Mrs. Lawley. She married Dorothy Brooks is her name now. She motivated me typing, shorthand. She showed us accounting, how to write checks.
Miss Brooks, my Spanish teacher, she lived in my neighborhood, and I had access to visiting her from time to time, even after school. And she always encouraged me to do my best. And when I graduated in '66, she took me to Detroit for a week with her.
One teacher was, her name was Mrs. Rowe. She was an English teacher, and that was not one of my better subjects. But after being in her class, she really motivated me in quite a few ways, where my grades were lower, and I ended up getting A's and B's out of that class, and I was so excited about it. She was really a great teacher.
I've always thought that you just don't start naming names of people or things that you want to thank them for, because when you start naming names, invariably you're going to leave out somebody, and somebody's going to be hurt. So all of the teachers that I had at William C. Taylor motivated each and every one of us.
The county gave us a school, but it's just like any other building. It didn't come dressed with all the nice things, images. So the parents helped to raise money, like for the drapes. Mm-hmm. The band needed uniforms.
And our football team was composed of players that had to supply their own uniforms. So it was very seldom did you find two people that had the same uniform.
A lot of parents was very involved in the schools. They made sure that we got things that we needed. Not only parents, there were some of the people in the town that helped too.
Most of our teachers came from other states. And at that time, there weren't hotels or places for them to stay. So the community opened up their homes to these teachers. Our teachers would come in on the bus, and they would be there to meet them and to invite them into their homes. So they actually stayed with persons in the community just so that they could teach us here at William C. Taylor.
There's this lady named Mrs. A.N. Nelson that used to put on shows here in the gymnasium to raise money for this school so we could get things that we ordinarily couldn't have gotten. And we had people like James Brown, Fats Domino, others. Before they was big, they were performing here.
But of course, I remember James Brown when he came in. That place was crowded. It was people everywhere because it wasn't just for the school, it was for the whole community.
The sun's gonna shine in my back door someday. Just you wait and see. Just you wait and see. One day you cry.
We had enough activities, programs, different things that we enjoyed. We had a band, and we had our own music and different music groups.
We had the marching band, concert band, jazz band, and then we had a local band.
Mr. Lightfoot, who was the band teacher, he worked with everybody. So they had the band, and then they had vocalists. You know, some of the girls, you know, they were the vocalists for the bands, and they would actually go out to other places and perform.
The best part of it, we would come down here, and in the evenings after school, after all the buses gone, we'd hit them in the buses.
We would practice marching up and down, but then all the cars on the road would stop to watch us.
Yeah.
So then they started moving us down on the
go
field.
to the football field.
And we marched in the William C. Taylor High School Band, which was a very band that we went all over in what we call Farmers Carnival parades.
The parades, they were like basically local, and they were like firemen's parades. And then we would go to the Apple Blossom Parade, like up in Winchester. And it was just like, back then it wasn't a lot to do, so a parade was a big thing. People waited for the parades, and it was just like fun and excitement.
The activities that I belonged to were during the course of study, during the day. I belonged to the choir, and belonged to the dramatics club. Not too long ago, I was in a play over in Middleburg, so I drew on some of those skills.
Well, I was in the, we call it a Future Business Leaders, FBLA. And basically, we dealt a lot with business classes, appearance, teamwork, that type of thing.
Coming up as a young man, my dad was a baseball player, and I kind of modeled my sports after him, even though Taylor didn't have a baseball team. But I developed and I played a lot of sports, basketball, football, just a lot of things. God gave me a gift to play, and it was a great experience coming to play at W.C. Taylor.
It was during the time of segregation, so the white clubs were called the Future, and the black clubs were called the National Farmers of America, or New Farmers of America. Well, it dealt with farming, dealt with agriculture, it dealt with the new technology of that age and how to incorporate that into the business of farming.
We were taught things like leadership. We were taught things like how to preserve and maximize our soil, the land.
Some of the projects that the New Farmers worked on, we went to an auction and accidentally purchased a bull. So we were sitting back there and we would wave our program, and we did not realize that they were watching us. So this one animal came through and someone bidded on it, and we threw our program up. And it wasn't until someone said "sold" to the young guys in the black jackets that our teacher realized that we had purchased the bull.
Later, when integration took place, you could go to Fauquier High. I believe it was in my junior year. We were told that if we wanted to, that we could transfer to Fauquier because they had integrated. I chose not to because I had started here and it was my desire to finish here. My brother, though, was not as fortunate.
Kind of hurt because we couldn't actually graduate from the school that we started when we were in the 8th grade.
When I went home and told my mom that I had to go to Fauquier High School, she's like, "I'm not sending you to Fauquier." I told her, "Mom, you have no other choice. We have to go." This school, William C. Taylor High School, closed. And we were passing to the 12th grade, and we had no other choice but to go there. It put a strain on you, and you could feel it, and you could tell it was not the same. You could feel the racism.
There were protests, there were sit-ins, there were a lot of things. There was a lot of anger. A lot of our students got lost during that transition. Transition is hard enough when you know it's coming, but when you don't know it's coming, and when you're a young person, it can be very, very devastating. So a lot of our students made the decision not to attend. So they did not graduate from high school because of that.
I enjoyed being here at Taylor. I got a chance to meet folk from the whole county. May have met my first real girlfriend here. So it was a good place. I was glad when the time was up. I was glad I came. I was glad I stayed and graduated from Taylor.
Taylor is more than just a building. It's a part of us as a whole, as alumnus from Taylor, because this is where we really got our basic start for what we had to face in life.
Respect was one of the main things that you learned. And if you could respect yourself, you could respect all people. It gave me a foundation to build upon what happened with me afterward. High school. I went into 7 years of the U.S. Army. Then I came back and got my college degree. And then from there, about 25 years ago, I opened my own catering company. And the foundations of everything that has been done was from here.
Some of the tools that I've received in helping me to move along in my journey were business mathematics and also typing and shorthand. After graduating from W.C. Taylor and having been a student that was in the National Honor Society, I was able to pass the civil service exam to be a clerk typist at a GS3 in the government when I entered in.
When I came back to Warrenton in 1995, I was amazed to find out how many graduates of William C. Taylor High School had become preachers in our community at large. I was just amazed and was overwhelmed with joy.
And it was just unreal, the talent that was in this school, as far as vocal, instrumental, the knowledge. I mean, we've had graduates from Harvard. When I look at the list of the accomplishments, we're not short. Taylor's not short on anything that is accomplished. I mean, really proud of where they've been and what they've done.
We were driving back today and talking to my daughters and just chuckling about coming back to Warrenton, coming back to W.C. Taylor. Would be nice to see some old teachers and just let them know you did okay.